draft physics video. It's kind of hot in here. Anyway, but you know, I'll sacrifice for science. That comes up in here, a little bit of trash talking by some people. But anyway, comments. But now I want to also just show a little bit of a two-slit experiment again done wrong. And it's just, you know, and then there's that idiot guy with the rockets don't work in space. And, you know, there's just no point in talking to them because they don't pay any attention to the arguments made, and they just keep calling everybody a liar. You know, and it bothered me in some respects. I mean, not that I liked any of these the right stuff guys, but you got to admit, courageous and smart men. You know, unusual combination. And tough. And like I say, you have to have a lot of balls to do the shit they did, and to have some little scumbag, you know, to have the wrong stuff, call them all liars, you know, because he doesn't like a theory. It's just insane. And then, you know, just to add the insanity, all the other, you know, decent scientists who worked at NASA, he's calling them all liars. Insane liars. I mean, not just little liars, like, you know, cheating on their wife kind of lie. Big, huge, preposterous lie. And that's disgusting. I'd sue the little fuck. If he was talking about my father, I'd sue him. I mean, it's disgusting. These asshole truthers and their preposterous accusations based on shit for brain evidence. Just absolute nonsense. He points to nothing. He shows nothing. I mean, just, you know, it's funny because he's an idiot, but it's not funny that these idiots are allowed to just open their mouth and say shit. So anyway, so yeah, I don't even know if I want to play it, because part of me wants to say, okay, he's a schizophrenic, paranoid lunatic with a conspiracy theory. What's new? And it's all that electric universe shit. It's all this Tesla crap. I mean, they're all kooks. All these Tesla nuts, you're all fucking kooks. You need to go to, you know, a proper medical facility, get properly diagnosed, because you're paranoid kooks. Shit. I mean, I don't, you know, whatever. I mean, you know, the world's just too fucked up. I mean, here I am sitting here with, you know, I have anxiety disorder, I have lots of psychiatric problems, but I can see them. I don't sit there and pretend I don't have them. And, you know, if you start claiming that hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people were part of a big, huge lie of the space program, I mean, that's just such an insane accusation to make when you have garbage for evidence. I mean, garbage for evidence. To even say something as stupid, rockets don't work in space. You didn't look it up. You didn't look up the chemistry. You didn't look up the fact that one of the most expensive parts on the space shuttle are the rocket engines. That's why they want to save these things, because those rocket engines are fucking amazingly expensive. And why are they amazingly expensive? Yes, because they have to handle all of that pressure. They have to create you know, hot combustion and expand molecular structures and take the impact. So it's like putting a firecracker on your hand. Now, it doesn't matter, the atmosphere doesn't matter. That's not going to change what it's going to do to my hand. You know, it's certainly going to make it worse. I mean, if I put a firecracker and I put my hand against a brick wall, yeah, it's going to make the damage worse because of that obvious reflection. But it doesn't change the fact that just putting it on my hand will damage my hand because of the expansion happening right next to my hand. And my hand won't be able to take this sudden jolt. And that's what the rocket engine is doing. It doesn't need an atmosphere to push against. It doesn't need a brick wall to push against. Sure, it would make it more effective, okay, if they could just push off brick walls all through space. That would make the rocket engine work twice as good, because you wouldn't be losing all of that force. But that's not how it works. It still works in space, and it works really well. You know, why would somebody make an argument about it? It's just such it's fucking grade school science, for fuck's sake. How can you make bold assertions that a fucking 6th grader could explain it to you? What do you think those nozzles are for, fuckhead? Why do you think they're so expensive? Made out of carbon, whatever, blah blah blah. Why? Oh, that's right, because a huge explosion is happening inside of them. Fuck. An expansion. Yeah, and you see the big giant, you see the expansion come out. I mean, just, you know, you could just go through all the, you don't see all that hot vapor coming out of the back end of the space shuttle? You don't see the huge plume of steam being created? That all happens in the nozzle, jackass. Fuck, stupid bastards. Anyway. Alright, so maybe I'll play this first. I don't know, maybe I'll do a comment first. Alright, so some idiot, Prof 2018, whatever. Sorry, but this is just shit. So he has a camera as an icon, so it must be a Ken Wheeler drifter. Difference between gravity and magnetic field. Okay, why don't you do some teaching? Earth attracts rocks with gravity force. Everything that has mass is affected by gravity. That's the definition of mass, by the way. Magnet does not attract rocks because it has no gravity force. It has nothing to do with it having no gravity force. It has to do with the fact that it doesn't have segregated polarization. Now, the more segregated, the more magnetic bits I put inside of it, the more magnetic it would be. If I took a lot of little tiny nanomagnets and I stuck them on, or embedded them in it, the thing becomes more and more magnetic the more magnets I put in it. So it's just about the arrangement of the material. Some materials, because of the elemental nature or because of the compound chemistry, you can make so they're have lots of these little things inside of them that can line up like magnets. So they become more and more magnetic the more of those little domains you're able to create in the chemistry, where the protons and the electrons line up in a particular way. And the polarization is all pointed one way. All the electrons are going that way, and all the protons are going that away. Or that away and that away could be the answer because of the right turns. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. Alright. Conclusion. The Earth is not a big magnet. It just acts like one. Doesn't even act like one. I mean, as the magnets go, it's like a really weak fucking magnet. I mean, incredibly weak. You can barely get it to turn a compass needle, for fuck's sake. It's so weak. So that statement is stupid. It doesn't act like a big magnet. And yes, it isn't a big magnet, because anybody who thinks about it for a second will figure that out. Magnets don't... Anyway. Gravity and magnetism is not the same thing. It's not about gravity and magnetism being the same thing. The point is the effect of gravity and the effect of magnetism. What are they caused by? And the point is, my argument is this, that of course they're caused by the same force, and the difference between gravity and magnetism is the polarization, the segregation of polarization. The more segregated the polarization, the more like a magnet it is, and the more random the polarization, that is, the more you mix up the north and the south ends in silly arrangements and mixtures, the less it can behave like a magnet, and the more it just behaves like matter. Okay, I think that's clear. Gravity is created by atomic particles. Gravity is created by atomic particles. Meaning what? It's not a very specific statement. Clearly, I agree that gravity is a nuclear force. It happens to the little bits. But it isn't created by electrons and protons. The force is the little bits. And the little bits get segregated by the electrons and the protons. But magnetic field is created by subatomic particles. Alright, so gravity is created by atomic particles, but magnetic field is created by subatomic particles. I don't know whether that's a proper distinction. Atomic particles versus subatomic particles. I don't think science has a lot of problems in terms of its designations. I don't think that's a clear designation. I think to many people that would be exactly the same thing. Unless you mean by atomic particle an atom. You know, I think most people would say electrons and protons are subatomic particles. So you're not winning with that explanation. So anyway, that drill got 12 thumbs up, which apparently must be his, his own sock account or something. I don't know. What the hell for? It's vacuous. And it's so simplistic. So, I mean, I don't want to be too insulting, but I mean, you're really not up to speed to have this conversation. Because you really just don't get the whole fucking point. That you can describe a system where the same thing does something, and if you change its configuration, it does something else, like a transformer. Have you ever heard like transformers, you know, or one of those little Yodas or something, whatever the fuck they are, they're little Japanese Pokemans or something, little transformer. See, same thing, but you give it a little bit of like a gremlin. You pour a little water on it, all of a sudden it goes all different. And so it's the same thing, gravity and magnetism. It's just a matter of exploiting what happens when you put all of one thing at one end and all the other thing at the other end. And you have this magnetic effect of doing that. Alright, now this relates, these people are usually the Tesla electric universe bullshitters and blah blah blah. So maybe I'll get to that because I've been trying to explain the difference between magnetism and electricity, and pointing out that electricity really isn't a thing. It's a symptom of magnetism. And you really can only create it. Might get in trouble with that. Anyway, alright, so as I've pointed out before, so what's happening with, and so this relates to gravity, because gravity is essentially there's a difference between how you making a force and being affected by a force. Just like in gravity, there's this little tricky part where being affected by gravity, it doesn't matter what my mass is. All the little bits are affected exactly the same. But if I was to produce gravity, it matters how big I am and what my mass is. I produce more gravity if I'm big than if I'm small. If I weigh a lot than if I weighed nothing. So it's like that. You wouldn't call the gravity different because it affects you one way and you produce it another way. So magnets and electricity are related in the same way, in the sense that magnetism is creating the opportunity for electrical potential. It's not electrical potential itself. It's just creating the mechanism that will permit it in the right circumstance. So give it a conductor and it will impose electrical potential or pressure. And the pressure is basically, as I've tried to explain, if the proton's the red thing, let's say, and electron's the black thing. If black force hits a proton, it goes 90 degrees. And if black hits an electron, it just reflects perfectly. So you can see that if force gets caught between two electrons, it'll just bounce back and forth. And so it has more and more effect as you bring them closer together, and less effect the number of times it hits. So if this was visualized as a ping pong ball, you can imagine that when it's close together, it's going bang, 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 bang. And when it's further apart, it's just going bang, 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 bang. Much weaker. So voltage is just really how much pressure there is between electrons. So it just means that there's either a lot of ping pong balls, or the ping pong balls, or the two electrons are close together and the ping pong balls are bouncing a lot. So that's the nature of voltage. Now a magnet, likely, its the flow of the segregation is probably created by the protons at one end, the electrons at the other end, and it's probably this bent field kind of idea. But it's basically creating this bit of this arrow stuff, this quanta. And when it puts it into a conductor, what it's doing is it's likely, because of the arrangement of the electrons, it's doing probably a pool ball thing. It hits this one moves a little bit this way, this one moves this way, this one moves, and it ends up putting a new arrow in between two electrons. So it's a new ping pong ball. Or else it pushes the electrons together. Either way, you could imagine that if the conductor had the electrons all on its surface and the magnetic force hits it, in the sense you have a magnet that's moving, the thing the magnet's going to do is hit the electrons, and that's going to compress them at one end, and the other end the electrons are going to, so at one end the electrons are going to move away, the other end the electrons are going to move this way towards. Either way, they're going to create more pressure because of the fact that they're being moved. But anyway, it's probably more complicated than that. But the bottom line is the magnetism imposes pressure on its introduction. Once it's moved the electrons, it has to let them move back again to move them again. But so that's why you can't have a constant. If you just put a magnet next to a conductor, nothing happens, because it moves the electrons and then they just stay there. They don't move anymore because they're far enough, they're as far away as they're going to go, and that's it. You're not going to gain any more potential, any more compression. But anyway, so the speed of you move the magnet, you can sort of understand that that would change how much pressure is created between the electrons. And so the voltage is, so electricity is just the amount of crap between electrons. It's bouncing back and forth fundamentally, or the distance the electrons are from each other. That's voltage. And magnetism is creating the segregated force necessary to move electrons one way or the other way, towards or away. And moving electrons towards and away is likely to create compression. And in conductors, that compression will move through the conductor. That's the very point of something that's called a conductor, is that it will balance pressure on its surface. So the charge will be always the same on its surface. From any one location, it maintains the same charge, except at the corners and the spiky bits, but that's a whole different explanation. The flat surfaces will have the same charge. But the point is that the word conductor basically means that it's able to move that any imbalance is blended into the conductor. That's probably enough of an explanation. So the point is it's exactly the same tons that are creating electricity and magnetism. And it's the one kind, let's see, not the one kind, that's not the right way to say it. All of the, another thing to point out is, even when a red hits an electron, okay, so I think I can make you understand that when the black ones get trapped, they're going to keep going back and forth. If red goes in, it does this 90-degree turn thing, but the effect of that is also this does move one quanta. So it's not like it doesn't impose pressure on an electron. It's just that the part of the pressure goes this way instead of this way. Part of the pressure is an imbalance in its sideways balance. So if it had 3 and 3, it ends up being 4 and 2. It's just the way it happens. 4 and 2 is twice, now it's twice as much, and it was even before, so the effect is magnified. But anyway, so the pressure is still there though. So if a red hits, there's still pressure. Red hits the electron. It's just that it's not going to go back and forth because it's escaped and now it's gone. So it can't go back and hit the other electron. It can't come back and hit this one again. So it's not sustained in terms of creating pressure. But it does create the initial hit that's real, and that's gravity. So the gravity component is always there. That's with every impact is the gravity component. The magnetic component is the fact that if it's a red hitting a black, it goes 90 degrees. If it's a black hitting a black, then it goes back. And vice versa for the red, the protons. So the gravity effect is one part of the reflection that's always there, red or black. The magnetic effect is going this way or going this way. Better way to say that. The magnetic, yeah, pretty much. The force having two vectors. If it goes this way, it's essentially two vectors because it gets one quanta this way and one quanta this way. And so it ends up with something like this or something like that. And if it was going that way, then it could be bent back to straight. But that's what it's going to do. One of those three. And then the final part of it, where was I? Anyway, so that's the polarization, is the idea that you can filter by that fact that you can reflect the thing perfectly back, or you can deflect it at a 90 degrees, send it to another dimension. So it goes from this dimension up and down to this dimension this way, or this dimension this way. So it can go either way perpendicularly. There's two perpendicular dimensions to any forward dimension, so I just thought that was important to say again. So it can go any one of those. Either one of the other two perpendicular dimensions. Two dimensions are always perpendicular to whatever dimension you're going in. Alright, then we'll call the dimension of your velocity, or the dimension of the force that hits you, the orientation of the force that hits you. There's two perpendicular dimensions. So that's the filter for the polarization. So that's the magnetism. And then the magnetism affects the electrons by compressing them and increasing their voltage, or injecting more quanta between them, which bounces back and forth and increases their voltage. Alright. So yeah, so this is, I just did the 20-minute version, and you really maybe need to do the a more extensive coursework to go through this and detail it. But I mean, I think anybody who has some understanding of electrodynamics and magnetism will understand how those distinctions can make one thing do all three things. And I think they can also understand that, yes, of these things, the one that doesn't have any real character is electricity, because that's just adding pressure between electrons. It's not polarized force, and it's not force in the sense. It's just putting more force between electrons. It's just not in the same category as magnetism, which is this filtering for polarization, and gravity, which is getting pushed by the force. So it doesn't qualify as a force. But in a sense, magnetism and gravity are the same thing, but you can make this easy distinction between the force having these two elements. So the fact is, the polarization is mixed in gravity. It's still there. It just isn't realized. It isn't exploited. So there's not a huge difference between magnetism and gravity, besides the fact that you're exploiting a filterable distinction that exists in the particles. And when you do that, you maximize their capacity to create reflections. Okay. Yeah, I think that's good enough. Alright, now let's play some of this stupid thing. Alright, so this is a 2-slit experiment. It's called You Can Science It. Whatever, nice enough guy trying to do his little thing, blah blah blah, but it's just it's the same. So anyway, it's kind of a nice little, you know, that uses the leads from pencils. Now, later in the video, he tries to do the math and fucks it up and gets the wrong answer twice. It doesn't really resolve that with any answer. Besides, oh yeah, well I guess my cardboard stuff isn't quite good enough. But anyway, but the real problem was, again, so the math he uses again is the math without taking the width of the slits in the double slit. So it's double slit math, and there's no variable for the width of the slits. So what it really is this single impediment math. That's what he's applying. It's not double slit math, it's single impediment math. And this part was just really annoying because, you know, it's the standard BS. I'll play this.
And first, shine your laser through the single slit. Now you should be able to see on the wall, there's not much going on. Single slit is boring. Now,
so, you know, he did a little joke with the cat. So you could see when he did it, you could see it was making a pattern. It's the same pattern, almost. I mean, you know, we didn't get to see it well enough, but I mean, we already know that if you make the slit really small, yeah, not too much pattern. And if you made it the width of the double slit, if you made it the width of both the openings in the double slit, you'd get plenty of pattern. So again, it's not a fair treatment. And this is supposed to be, like I said, this is quantum basics, quantum this, quantum interference. So it's all this stuff, this nail in the coffin experiment. And again, it's just so raggy that they don't get any of this right. You know, that none of the truth just doesn't matter here. And you know, he even says later about how the Young's experiment proves the wave nature of light. It does no such thing. Single slit interference disproves the wave nature, because waves don't do that. Water waves.
when you do the double slit, you should see light spread out a lot and have these light and dark patches. There it is, double slit. That is diffraction.
Yeah, it's not diffraction, it's interference, but whatever.
Diffraction. Get the diffraction pattern. That is quantum physics. Waves of light are canceling each other out. They're literally destroying each other, interfering.
So again, they're literally destroying each other and interfering. No, what's happening is light that was, you would think would go here, goes there instead. Nothing's canceled out, nothing goes away. The light merely is bent into one location rather than another, the location that would be even distribution. That's it. So these are all such distortions of what's really happening. Nothing's canceled out. Light plus light does not equal dark. It's just bullshit. So that's probably enough of this.
To the point where light cannot reach certain points. Look at that. Single slit, double slit, single slit, double slit. It's quantum physics.
So again, single slit, nothing. When we know the single slit does exactly this pattern, because again, see, he's not doing this with a precise double slit width. So he's not even getting the traditional double slit pattern, which should have the two frequencies superimposed on each other. So it's just so casual and inaccurate. And again, this is a really important step physics took in defining reality, is playing with this it's a wave thing, and then playing with this stupid idea of wave-particle duality, which is just rationally uncognizable into something sensible. It doesn't make any sense. It's mechanically inoperable and unimaginable. Okay. Next. So anyway, Heffladay said a couple of stupid things, just totally useless. So I didn't know what to do. Delete them or what. Just a heads up, elastic interaction, standard physics vocab, equals kinetic interaction. Draft science speak. Well, I've heard the term inelastic being used, you know, but I mean, who says an inelastic band? Nobody. I mean, it's just another example of how. Why don't you fix that though? So, you know, okay, we got the plus minus wrong. You know, I mean, it just doesn't matter how many things, like north south pole, we got that wrong. It doesn't matter how many things we get wrong. We don't go to fix anything. I mean, fuck. So now you're gonna pretend everybody thinks of elastic meaning something that bends and yields, and now the real meaning is no. That means elastic means something that doesn't yield. What do you want me to say? That's a heads up. It's more evidence of fuck science. Perhaps I thought it was also used in string weight pulley scenarios. I don't know. Pulley scenarios really aren't elastic in any way. Elastics, springs, others. Yes, well, clearly the spring constant would be like the elastic constant, so that sort of makes sense, but I don't know about pulleys. Anyway, have you won awards for pedantry regulatory body? I don't know what that means. LOL. Don't know. And then he says too late. I don't know what that means either, so fuck that. Fuck that. Fuck that. Fuck it. I read it, so I'll just delete that whole string of mush. Okay, so then some guy says, Steve Irwin, when are you going to do another Ken Wheeler video? Well, people really don't find it. People don't really care, you know. So, what's the point? Truth just doesn't matter to anybody but me, apparently. And, but whatever. I've done plenty of them, and you can't get a response from any of the Ken Wheeler people, so what's the point? Ken Wheeler won't defend his own bullshit. His defenders won't defend his bullshit, so what's the point? You're like the only scientist out there checking his shit. Keep up the good work. Cool strobe light, by the way. Well, it's not really a strobe light. It's just LEDs. But anyway, strobes go. It's just blinking LEDs, not quite strobing. Also, if interested, Hitman Notoriety, the rockets don't work in space guy, made a video about you. Well, that video he apparently took down. But he did make a video defending his rocket crap, which is just complete crap. He just sits there and spends 10 minutes calling everybody on Earth a liar. There's just no point. He doesn't make an argument. He says, you know, he makes a, why don't they shoot rockets off of mountaintops? Well, because it would just cost about $1 zillion to do it that way. Retard. Why does it always hit the ocean? Well, you know, because blowing up fish is okay. Blowing up residential neighborhoods, yeah, people frown on that. God, you're really goddamn just too stupid. Made a video about you. In case you're tired of talking to the same old idiots, you could talk to a new idiot. Yeah, well, I mean, the idiot is one thing, but again, these Tesla kooks are just conspiracy kooks, and Ken Wheeler's one of them. I mean, he actually made a video where he's talking about how, well, I can't really talk about scalar waves because, like, the government's going to come and get me. What? I mean, these people are, like I said, I mean, you know, they have a term for the people with these kind of paranoid delusions, and it's called a schizophrenic. I mean, you're schizoid. When are you going? Okay, no, none of that, idiots. And then the McCule CS guy said you called him a scientist. So you know, it's just more of this cheap ridicule. Now, if I'm right, then do I get to own the word scientist? Are you going to admit, CS McCule guy, when I'm right, that all the other scientists have to be demoted to theologists, and I'll be the only scientist on Earth then? The only person that can wear the scientist badge. Now again, this was somebody else calling me this. I didn't say I'm a scientist, but I don't really see any reason why I'm not a scientist when pretty much I spent my whole life, much of my life, working on scientific things. One of my first jobs, not first jobs, when I was about 17, for about 5 years, I worked in a machine shop, and I just did a lot of grunt work and machines, milling and all that kind of stuff. But I did do some on the side engineering and this and that, and it was all lasers when they were brand new. Nobody even knew what they were back then, and the first CPUs, and it was LED controllers. It was really pretty sophisticated stuff. But anyway, and then onward from that, I worked as a mechanic. I've installed furnaces, done electrical systems. I did circuit boards, and then I spent the last 7 years watching a lot of physics lectures. Now, okay, so you say it's laughable that I would be called a scientist. I'd say it's laughable that you'd be called a decent or honest or human being with any kind of integrity. I think that's laughable. Because I don't think you have any right to ridicule one fucking thing I've done. I haven't violated any laws here. I haven't molested any truths here. I've just made arguments and presented evidence of corruptions in the thing you're defending. Your Pope is naked, and I'm demonstrating that, and you don't like it. And that's all this is about. You're a petty fuck. Alright? Because I haven't done anything to violate any kind of truth here, or any kind of integrity or honesty. I haven't made one fucking dishonest argument here. Not one. These are all sincerely held and believed things in the first place. And again, you haven't dented my arguments with anything like, well, here's my proof of my UFO, my frame UFO. We'll have to come up with a term for that. Unidentified frame, framing object. Yeah. Fuck you, cunt. Weasley puke. Alright, anyway. Moving on. I'm just thinking about this guy again. This video was just so bad. Called it Checkmate Science. I show you.
Builds up that friction, so really there is no... The magnetism comes after this pressure moves around. And you got a lot of people thinking that magnetism's, the key force, but really magnetism's kind of a subservient thing to this pressure moving around.
Yeah, well, whatever. You have it exactly backwards, but, of course you have it backwards. You don't know that rockets create pressure, and that it doesn't matter if there's no wall on the other side. If you make a pipe bomb, and you leave one end of the pipe bomb off, the other end is still going to have a bad day. You don't understand that? And you're just dumb. Okay. Back to the comments. Last comment, I think. Alright, good effort, Gary. I haven't posted for ages. It's Colin Agnew. Damn. Colin. I remember that name. Let's see if this idea works. Oh, it probably won't irritate me. I think that the electrons are polarized and not the tons. Well, of course, the electrons are polarized. In the sense that the electrons can stomach things of one polarization and not stomach things of another polarization. You want to put it that way. They're pervious to one, transparent. They're transparent to one, opaque to the other, however you want to describe it. Of course, they're like a polarized filter. So the electrons they're going this way, and the protons have it going this way, so it filters the frisbees differently. Shit. I can't make it any simpler than that. They're frisbees. Frisbee go this way, frisbee go that way. Proton bars this way, electron bars this way. You can sort of get it. the frisbee's going this way, it goes through the electron. If the frisbee's going, you know, that way, and the, you know, it's going to get blocked by the proton. I mean, fuck. It makes more sense to me. Well, again, I don't know how you can have polarization and a force. So you have a mechanism that produces the force, like a magnet. So I mean, you're fucking up if you're saying it's all one thing. The force the magnet creates is the same as the magnet. That wouldn't make any sense, would it? There obviously has to be a force being created. The magnet's not creating the force, it's filtering the force. Okay. Alright. Makes more sense to me. Well, I don't know how it does, because how can you have polarization without a polarizing filter to detect it? The polarization wouldn't mean anything if I didn't have something to throw the frisbee at. As they are the receiver and, say, organizer of the force. So again, it doesn't organize, it just filters. Organize is way too sophisticated a term. Let's think about how a permanent magnet is made. Why? We already know what it is. It's the domains. And so it's made by getting the domains, liberating them with heat, and then fixing them in, you know, with a magnet. And then the domains will get fucked up if you whack it with a hammer or something, because you'll knock them all loose again. You know, rearrange them. Nothing complicated there. And I see it fits into your work. Your first thing is trying to contradict what I'm saying, and then you say it fits. And you see, that doesn't work for me either. I mean, there's no point in that. Cheers. Hope this helps rather than hinders. I don't know. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, I guess. It seems hindery to me. But obviously, if people are sincerely confused, then you have to explain. So maybe I need to explain. There's frisbees, that's the force, and then there's things with bars, okay, and they're the thing you'd say is a polarizer. They're an izer. So the force is one thing, the izer is another, the matter. So you have force and matter. The force pushes the matter, and matter compresses or expands the force. Something like that. Alright, it's probably enough. I'm getting tired. But yeah, I'm so disappointed because the, you know, just watching that guy's video, I mean, rocket engines are just so, it's such a fundamental thing, especially a guy thing, you know what I mean? I remember I watched like every single Apollo liftoff thing. It was really something to see. I mean, I went to Cape Canaveral a couple of times, and you know, one of the times they had the rocket up, and you know, it's huge. It's fucking huge. And you know, you go there, you can see the capsules. You know, yeah, they had a lunar module, but it wasn't one that was actually on the moon, obviously. But they did have the command capsule or whatever it's called. And you're just looking at it, it's kind of a small thing. You know, when you look at the size of the rocket, it's just a puny little fucking thing. And you just, you know, like I said, it takes such balls to get inside one of those things and get shot into fucking space. And for this fucking douchebag, you know, to sit there and call them all liars. Yeah, you just want to punch him in the face. What the fuck is that shit? Come on. Man up. That's just weasel bullshit. So yeah, somebody ought to make the documentary The Wrong Stuff. You know, they just really ought to do it. Just point out how many people just suck. All these fucking losers and their arrogant pronunciations about what the fucking truth is. You know, and they haven't even opened the book. They haven't even tried to figure out the truth. They haven't, you know, nothing. I mean, you can say this guy did something because he drew all these fucking pictures, but then none of the pictures have anything to do with chemistry or physics. I mean, look, here's a rocket, and writing, and here's a rocket over here too, and see, it goes all bendy. Well, it goes bendy, you idiot, because they're going into orbit. They're not trying to get somewhere. If they were trying to get somewhere, then they go straight. You see, when they were like trying to go to the moon, well, they actually used the gravity to aim better. So they did go around the Earth once before they shoot off to the moon, I believe. But it's clearly it's easier to expand your orbit by increasing your velocity. It's less work. So, I mean, to say this is part of the conspiracy. Oh, no, they bend because the rocket engine isn't working. No, that's when they have tremendous power. It's because the fuel they have when they get to space it goes so much further than the fuel getting off the Earth. I mean, the first mile is the one that like uses up half the fuel because of all the friction. You can't understand? Oh, he's just too stupid. They're not gaining anything. Like, even if your stupid theory about air pressure was correct, you can't understand how they're not gaining anything by having more air to push against when they have to go push against it in the direction they're moving. You can't even figure that out? That the friction far outweighs the benefit of the fat air to push against. And again, just look at the nozzles. For fuck's sake, why do you think they are shaped like this? Why do you think they have this precise German Nazi engineered nozzle shape? Okay, and they have this whole hardware because this nozzle takes tremendous pressure. They have all this fucking hardware to keep this thing from blowing up and cracking, and it's all made of this special carbonized weave of carbon fibers. Gets extremely hot because there's fucking explosions in here, shithead, and they're bouncing against these surfaces. You can't fucking figure this out? They're bouncing against these surfaces, you shithead. Very high pressure, incredibly high pressure. If you were like sitting right here, you would be thinner than a fucking piece of paper. There's so much fucking pressure. Like, say, a zillion pounds per square inch pressure there, you stupid shit. So what are you going on about? But again, it's another Tesla, another electric universe kook. And they just don't care about the truth. They don't care about having any integrity. They just make these slimy accusations that everybody's a liar and part of the conspiracy. Ugh. Puke. Nobody conspired against Tesla. He was wrong-headed. Everybody knew his fundamental understanding was archaic and useless. Nobody wanted to hear about his fucking, I can make death rays and bullshit. Because he had bad physics. And he was a rag talker like you, calling other people like Einstein, all kinds of shit. He was just a shit talker, not a doer. Fuck you people. Improving other people's work, he was good at doing that. But he sucked when you left him alone. Left to his own devices, unmonitored, without a proper instructions. Yeah, he was a failure. Alright. Fuck you people. Iconizing, this fucking ether science. Ugh. Shit. Anyway, till next time. No, there's another guy. I just remembered. So yeah, that stupid Mercurial CS guy had left this post about this stupid Ruttenberg guy or whatever the fuck his puke name was. Yeah, I found out that guy's a fucking religious kook. So he's making some rag about Lesage gravity, and there was all that little creator part in there. Well, the reason why he was talking about creators is because he was a religious kook. So he's quoting religious kooks at me and then talking about how I'm a shitty scientist. A guy who had his own unification theory and Tesla liked, And they say Einstein plagiarized, what I don't see it, frankly. Not possible. But whatever. Wavy crap. On, off, on, off. The only thing rational about it is that he's paying attention to this idea of polarization. But, again, this is this stupid wavy shit. No need for waves. Bullets. Bullets at a frequency. No waves.